Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the planning meeting of Melton Borough Council. I'm Councillor Pam Posnett, Chair of Planning. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist anyone who needs any assistance. Please put your phone to silent during this meeting. We will be using the audio-visual system this evening, and the meeting will also be streamed live on YouTube. Any member wishing to speak, please raise your hand and speak directly into the microphone in front of you. Remember to turn it off once you have finished. Members voting will be by raised hands. I would like to introduce those present, and I'll start off by saying that Councillor Webster may join us, but I think he's stuck either on the A6 or the A46 somewhere, so he may arrive in time for the meeting, he may not, but he was aiming to be here. So I have Councillor Brown, Councillor Chandler, Councillor Evans, Councillor Fisher, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Illingworth, Councillor Pritchett, Councillor Smith and Councillor Wood. We have a team of officers present who are to my right, my legal advisor, Tom Pickwell. To my left, Paul Fahili, Interim Assistant Director for Planning. Planning Development Manager, Louise Parker. Senior Planning Officer, Andrew Cunningham. And Planning Officer, Helen White. We also have our Democratic Services team present, assisting with the technology and taking the minutes, Sarah Evans and Helen Ainge. Apart from Mr. Webster's absence, we have got no other apologies for absence. We are all here this evening. The minutes that were held on the of the meeting held on the 12th of January. Can anybody propose those minutes to say they were a true and accurate record of the meeting, please? Councillor Brown, and have we got a seconder? Councillor Holmes. Can I have a show of hands for everybody who is in favour of those minutes? That's everybody except Councillor Wood, who was absent from the meeting. So those minutes are carried. Has any member got any interest that they wish to declare in this planning application? No. The planning application is for Branston Road, Eton, and it's a full application to 22/00553 FUL. And I'd like to hand over to Helen, who will take us through the application. Helen.
Thank you, Chair. So this application site is a 1.4 hectare field located within the open countryside, 650 metres to the east of Eton and 800 metres to the west of Branston. Next slide, please. The application seeks full planning permission for the change of use of the land from agriculture to equestrian and the erection of a small stable building with associated hard standing and access off Branston Road. The built development would cover 2% of the site, approximately 300 metres squared. The vehicle access would be gated at a distance of 9 metres from the highway boundary to allow for vehicles to stand clear of the carriageway. No highway safety concerns have been raised by the local highway authority. The required visibility displays would be provided, and it's been recommended that these are secured by condition to ensure they're provided prior to the occupation of the site. No details of the proposed gates have been provided, and it's suggested that these could be secured by condition to ensure that they are appropriate for the site context. Next slide, please. The building would have an L-shaped plan form, including 3 stable bays a tack room, storeroom, and washroom and toilets. Although this is not a material planning consideration, the size of the stables would comply with DEFRA's horse welfare standards. So that's in response to a question raised at briefing. Next slide, please. The design of the building would be functional, including a low roof, timber cladding, and a corrugated rubber roof, which is considered appropriate for the rural location. A small wind generator and solar panels are proposed to provide power to the site. A mains water connection has already been provided. No details of external lighting have been provided as part of the application, and there's a condition recommended for inclusion that would secure these details, again, to ensure that they are appropriate for the site context and to protect bats within and around the site. Next slide, please. The visual impact of the proposal is a key consideration. To mitigate harm, the proposal includes a landscaping scheme to provide screen planting within and around the boundary of the site, including 300 trees and 1,000 plants. The location and species mix proposed is considered acceptable and is supported by County Council, Forestry and Ecology. As well as negating the effect of the proposed development on the landscape character of the area, the proposed planting would benefit the site's ecology. Further protection would be given to the site's ecology through a condition which would secure the mitigation measures set out in the ecology survey submitted as part of the application. Next slide, please. A soil survey has been submitted as part of the application, which demonstrates that the land within the site is unlikely to be best and most versatile agricultural land. Natural England, as the technical consultee, have been consulted on the soil survey submitted, and they're satisfied that sufficient detail has been provided proportionate to the scale of the proposed development, and they raise no objections. The proposal is for a small scale equestrian development for the personal use of the landowner. A condition has been suggested to secure this use. The closest residential to the property to the site is located 182 metres away. Given the scale and nature of the proposed development, it's not considered that it would have a negative impact upon residential amenity. On balance, it's considered the proposal is in accordance with the relevant planning policies, in particular local plan policy D2, which is equestrian use, and it's recommended that the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Has anybody got any questions for Helen about the presentation she's just made? Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I raised this on Monday night, but now we've got the screen. Could you just show me where the general agricultural building that was permitted last year, where it's going?
We just go back to the first slide, please. Just to confirm that the agricultural building would be located on a separate parcel of land to the application site. So it's a parcel of land that is to the north of the application site.
So it's up there.
Yeah. So I think there's in the report on page 16, it's shown there's a diagram, a plan at the top of that page, and it shows the agricultural building as a red line, red square. But as I said, it's on a separate parcel of land.
It's black and white on here, you see.
Oh, sorry. on my copy, Here's the red. So there's a square shown to the north of the application site. Well, probably slightly to the
No,
west of the application site.
I'm more puzzled than ever now.
Yeah, a bit slightly closer. Yeah, kind of there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, councillor
thank you.
Chandler. Councillor Holmes.
Page 11, 4.3.2, it says here, Melton Borough landscape and historical urban character. I might sound a bit picky, but it must be rural, mustn't it? Assessment. It says urban character assessment. Page 11. It would be rural, wouldn't it? Because that area of the borough is more rural anywhere else. Four point 3.4.3.2, page 11.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to check what the document, because it's a document for the
Yeah.
whole borough.
Right.
So it may be correct,
Yeah.
but I can check that for you.
It just doesn't read right when it's where it is. Anyway, the other thing is, looking at the site, it has a lot of sort of hedge that isn't there. So obviously it would want some hawthorn whips in it, because it said something about trees or planting to do, but it wants to be hawthorn because it is hawthorn hedging along there. It would want that. It wouldn't take a lot to put it, and then where it has said as well about the trees, I can't see anything where there would be fencing around those trees, because horses would love them. I can't see it on here at all. Perhaps it is, but I've missed it, but I can't see. That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome. So yes, the document is correct. So it does say urban in the title because it is a borough-wide assessment. So that is the correct wording in the report. With regards to the tree species, again, that's proposed in the landscaping plan. And I think it's set out in the report what the species mix would be. But we have requested the inclusion of suggested the inclusion of a landscaping condition that would show the exact size and location of each species within the site. So gapping up of the existing hedgerows, a post and rail fence, and tree planting are proposed within the application site. The species proposed is considered appropriate, so they're locally native species, but also appropriate for within an equine use, so they're not toxic to horses, but all of that would be secured via the landscaping condition.
Anybody got any other questions for Helen? No? Well, thank you very much indeed for that, Helen. I'd now like to call Simon Tong, if he could come to the table in the centre there, please. Simon is an objector. If you can press the face on the microphone in front of you, lights up red, then you'll be live. Yeah, that's fine, thank you. You've got 3 minutes. At 30 seconds, I'll give you a warning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Councillors, for the opportunity to state this case. First, I'd like to draw the attention to the 22 objections raised against this proposed application, a good deal of which reference the Melton Plan for Equestrian Development and their concerns regarding the loss of countryside, detrimental effect to the local landscape and unnecessary development of currently undeveloped land. Please note, previous to this application, there was a very similar application which was withdrawn, which also had a large amount of objections. In the Melton Plan section D2 equestrian development, it states the development will not have an adverse effect on the landscape or character of the area. Similarly, with the Melton Policy EM1, landscape characteristics, additionally the LUC study for landscape sensitivity and green infrastructure prepared for Melton Borough Council designates this area as in the Nipton Bowl, which should be considered as a medium to high level of sensitivity for any residential development and high with regards to commercial development. And what does this development constitute? Either of those, I'm not sure. The proposed development is sited along a rural lane and is really an open countryside. As there are no other buildings, the proposed development will be visible from both the road and adjacent footpaths. I believe this will have an adverse effect on the landscape and character of the area. There is a concern that the start of any development along the Branston Road may begin the process of infilling between the two villages, thus forever changing the pleasing aspect when approaching either of these conservation villages, referring to policy EN6 with approaches to conservation villages. This concern can be seen when looking at the small scale equestrian developments which have been permitted along the road between Goby, Marwood and Chadwell, where ad hoc pieces of land have been poorly developed with sheds, caravans, wooden stabling, associated traffic problems, potential future applications for changes of use and residential development. And also I would like to draw the attention to policy SS1, presumption in favour of sustainable development, and ask the council what are the benefits of this development when considering the impact to the community. It is neither residential or commercial, so has no, no positive gain there. As a community, we will only see the detrimental impact. There are no benefits. This is a leisure development solely for the proposer's use. As one final point I would like to add, at this time, LCC Highways are considering an application which has been made for a designated right-of-way which runs through the proposed development. This is the historical path mentioned in some of the objections.
30 seconds.
This, I believe, may have ramifications for the previous LCC Highways report, which was carried out prior to this application being submitted, and may need to be revisited as it will undoubtedly change the highways risk profile if successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tong. Can you just stay there, please? Committee, has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask of Mr. Tong? Councillor Evans?
I did read about this possible, I presume, footpath, roadway, whatever that's going across the site. Could you indicate to us, if we put the map back up,
Of
exactly
course.
where that would be?
Yes.
Thank you. Map back so that we can see where, because obviously if it's going right across the site, it's a
Do you
problem.
mind if I get up? Is that all right? There's already an existing footpath. I think it's F49, which runs along here, but this is along the bottom of the old quarry place. And there are some very steep iron steps that go up to the site. For very many years, people from both Branston and Eton have walked the edge of this around the top of this quarry place, all the way along to meet the footpath that then goes into the paddock down the back of the rear foot. People have used it as a safer route because otherwise, if they can't manage the steps, which are very, very steep, they would then be faced with having to walk on the road itself. So that's the basis of why that's gone to Leicestershire County Council.
Could I just ask what you, because obviously I visited the site, you're saying it's basically the other side of the hedge, by the hedge and follows the hedge.
Yes.
along that triangle of land.
Yeah, it's in that field where the proposed
Yeah,
development
but
is.
on the applicant's land.
Yes,
obviously.
yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you very much for your presentation. When was the footpath diversion request made?
I'm not entirely sure when it went in, but it would have been in towards the end of summer, early autumn, I think it went through.
2022. Yeah. What was the date of this planning application?
Helen?
So the application was valid on the 27th of April, 2022.
So the footpath diversion request was made after the planning application came in.
The applicant closed that footpath off to people who'd been using it. So that's when that went in, that application to Leicestershire County Council.
But there's a new metal gate. There's a new metal gate in and a footpath. And somebody who, one of the comments from one of the locals was that you can actually use that now. You couldn't use it before because it was overgrown.
On the actual F49 footpath.
Yeah.
On the top there, there is a metal gate there. I mean, I don't think it was ever, I've used that path for years. It's never been overgrown.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillor Holmes?
Thank you. Yeah, these footpaths are ancient because obviously people working on the ironstone would actually go from wherever they live, cottages out in the countryside, wherever they live, to their work. And so they are ancient footpaths. I just wonder if this is really a stumbling block to what. Can we go further? Because this isn't resolved. I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps I could ask the solicitor, please.
Louise Parker, the planning manager, will explain.
Thank you. So the public right of way is outside of the red line. So for the purpose of the consideration this evening, you're considering development, change of use application within that red triangle site that was shown. Public right of way is outside of that. So it's beyond the consideration of this planning application this evening.
The question.
Can I come back? Because I thought the footpath was within it. It's not in it at all. Oh.
Councillor, I think
Councillor
the
Pritchett.
existing footpath is round skirts around the outside. It's the application for a diversion that would go through the site that was actually made after the date is after the planning application was made. Is that correct? Thank you.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? Councillor Evans?
Yeah, sorry to come back. Obviously, I think Councillor Pritchard has made a very important point. There's a question of whether the chickens come before the egg or not here, because obviously the locals are saying they used to walk on the other side of the hedge before this application, but that they're saying the evidence is that was closed to them, so that they then have to walk the old, and I've walked it, is interesting, challenging as a footpath for obvious reasons, because it's old ironstone works, and therefore I can imagine certain people with less able than myself would struggle to make that footpath. So it's a question of how that all balances out, I think, and we need to consider that as a committee. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? No? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tong. If you can take your seat again. Councillor Webster hasn't entered the council chamber, but he will not be voting on this application because he hasn't heard the debate. Thank you. I'd now like to call Mr. Haslam to the table, please. And Mr. Haslam is speaking for the applicant. If you can press the vase on the microphone, it will turn red, and that means that you're live. Yeah, that's right. You'll have 3 minutes, Mr. Haslam, and I'll give you a warning at 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thanks. The application is for 3 private timber stables in the corner of a field. The design is to a high standard with timber-clad frame and finish, with the small amount of electric required being produced by wind and solar. The NPPF is supportive of equestrian development, noting that sport and recreation can make an important contribution to the health and well-being of communities. The Melton Local Plan also supports equestrian development, noting the importance in the borough as a way of supporting the rural economy. Horses have been part of the grazed landscape for thousands of years, and as you drive around the countryside, you'll see many stables and equine facilities. So what's being proposed is in keeping with countryside pursuits. We've tried to address as many of the concerns raised by locals as possible by undertaking highways and ecology assessments, and none of the technical consultees have raised any objections. as identified, the stables will not sit on the best and most versatile agricultural land. We've proposed landscaping, which includes 300 new native trees in a belt, 1,000 new mixed native hedge plants, and 3 infield trees, ensuring the landscape is enhanced and that the wildlife and biodiversity is also improved. There are no rights of way affected by this proposal, and overall we feel it's a well designed and thought out application for a small range of private use stables.
Thank you, Mr. Haslam. If you just wait there for a second or
Thanks.
two. Has anybody got any questions for Mr. Haslam? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, could I just confirm on the private use stables is, I presume you won't be renting them out to anybody else. It's not going to be a business or a cash in hand business
It's a private use
for an individual.
for for me and my partner.
Yeah, it's okay.
Any other? Councillor Evans?
Obviously, you've heard the debate on the footpath diversion or lack of, or whatever. Were you aware when you put in this application that residents and members of the public were using the other side of the hedge as a footpath for some time, according to one of the objectors?
We only received the application just before Christmas last year for the proposed new footpath route.
That wasn't the question. Were you aware that members of the public were using, because of the issues with the other footpath, were using a footpath on your side of the hedge to get to, because obviously if you've walked that footpath, and I assume you have at some time or other, you know how tricky it is. Were you aware that members of the public were walking on your side for some time, obviously because you've got to prove it's for some time?
So we'd seen people walking in the field, but we'd only purchased the land about a year ago, so the extent to which it was used was unknown to us. And one of the first things we did when we bought the land was actually cut back the overgrowth in the ironstone face.
One supplementary question, please, Chair. Obviously, everybody who lives in the countryside knows that when you have a horse thing, you need ephemera, as I call it, things like horse boxes, cars, other such things, not just the actual building. Are you agreeing to the fact, and would you agree to the fact that nothing would be stored on the site other than the horses?
Other than the horses and probably a muck trailer.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes?
My concern is that for actually your safety for the buildings, because just up from me across the road at the house next to me, they have a big horse place now that they've built for their own private use, and quite recently and they chain it up each night, and the locks have been taken off, and they have actually now had to put blocks everywhere so that people can't get in, and you know, that's a concern for me. I don't know how you're going to stop people, because it's actually happening, and I'm quite close to where you are. So
what are they going in? Are they stealing things or just breaking in?
What question were you actually asking?
I've asked the question, Madam Chairman. Are you happy that you are going to be able to secure when you get the building? Are you going to be able to secure it? That's what I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I think we are comfortable. We acknowledge the risks, but the tack room would be locked. There'd be a lock on the gate.
Councillor Chandler?
Chairman, I've got to come back to this footpath. Who's put in for the diversion order? A parish council, an individual, or what? Because it's got to come from, I thought, a properly constituted body to change of direction of a footpath.
Just to confirm, we've had a look on the Leicestershire County Council website and can't actually see as a current application on there, so I'm not sure who submitted it.
Yeah, then perhaps solicitor wishes to come back, Tom.
Yeah, so I'm not a footpath expert, but my understanding is that they have the definitive map of the footpaths. The only way that you can change a footpath is by a modification to that, and that needs to be done by a footpath diversion order. So regardless of what's in the pipeline, it's what's currently there. Even if there was a footpath that ran across the land, a planning permission wouldn't give any permission to be able to obstruct that. You'd be stopping up a highway. So in any event, I don't think it's relevant, the footpath, to this application.
Leicestershire highways and the footpaths people and the way marking gentlemen. But I do think, you know, it has to be a properly constituted body that puts in to divert a footpath. I couldn't go to the county council tomorrow and say, I want the footpath moving. I mean, it used to have to be advertised in the London Gazette when you put in, because we had one to say we could build a house and we moved a footpath, but it had to be advertised in the London Gazette and it cost us about £4,000 40 years ago.
Tom, do you wish to come back?
Yeah, so just to add to that, I don't know who can put an application in. Certainly I've seen owners do it, and I assume parish councils, town councils could possibly do it as well. But it does have to go through that formal process of notification. It has to be advertised in the newspaper. People can object to it. But I think the position remains at the moment, there doesn't appear to be a footpath that crosses the land anyway. And if there is an application, then that will be assessed through a separate process, but it doesn't have any impact on this application.
Are there any more questions that you'd like to ask Mr. Haslam? No? Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Haslam. Right, over to the debate now. So who wants to start debating this application? Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Right, as I asked the gentleman about security, it is a very serious matter. We've talked to, what's his name, the police, you know, Supremo, and it is really very dangerous to have buildings out in the countryside without a house with them. But that is not what what we're looking at. And I am very concerned about it. I'm really concerned about still the footpath thing, but really the main thing that I'm concerned about is actually having buildings out in the countryside. And I'm sure these look very smart. And I take the point of the gentleman who said about from Godby Marwood to Scorford, they were dreadful, and they are. They're sort of like
Councillor Holmes, I'm sorry to have to interrupt.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I'll forget that one. But
no, it wasn't that one. The security of it is not our problem. That's not what is being discussed here tonight.
Well, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, but I beg to differ, because if we're letting something...
Perhaps our solicitor will inform you then.
Yeah, right, that's fine.
Yeah, security is not a material planning consideration. You're looking at the development and the proposal in front of you. All the external factors that sit outside of that aren't relevant to the actual planning application. So I wouldn't be taking security into account when you make your decision.
Anybody else? Councillor Evans?
I sit here and I mean, obviously, this development will in some form or other be detrimental to the countryside because it's an imposition in a very rural location. There is no buildings in sight anywhere from that particular location. So you can see that point of view, but you've got to weigh that up against the benefits, as I keep getting told, and you have to take every planning matter. I can see, honestly, no reason to reject this application at all. The only concerns I have is the lighting, the imposition. I wish the lighting to be as heavy as possible. I do not want to see lights on overnight because that would really have a big impact. And I think that the officers will assure me that will be the case. I mean, obviously for security reasons, I can understand they'll need PIRs or whatever, but we really need to make certain that this does not stand out and try and minimize the impact on the residents and the ecology of the area. But I can see no reason, unfortunately. It is unfortunate in a way because it is a beautiful spot. And as a geologist, it's a great ironstone cutting that goes through there, historical. But none of this development will have any impact on that outweighs the benefit for the applicant. Thank you.
I think Helen said when she was talking that there are conditions about lighting that will be, if it's permitted, that will be in the papers. Councillor Smith.
I was just going to ask if, following on from Councillor Evans' statement, we could request motion sensitive lighting rather than lighting that has to be left on all the time. Is that somewhere where I might have forgot? I don't know.
Helen.
Did you just want me to read out the wording of the condition that is currently proposed?
Yeah, I have got it in front of me, but I've got a bit of brain fog at the minute.
No, that's fine, don't worry. So it's condition 8. No, sorry, condition 9, yeah. So it says, prior to the installation of security lighting, flood lighting, details of any such lighting shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority, together with a lux plot of the estimated illuminance and details of BAT sensitive design. The lighting shall be installed only in accordance with the approved details. So that would require them to submit the full details, including the lux plot, to show kind of the light generated. And then we would control that through the condition.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you again. The leading insurers of farm buildings and farmyards, they have to get a policy with them, you have to have a certain standard of low level lighting on 24 hours a day. And that's the only way you can get insurance with them. I mean, I don't know about equestrian things, but that's NFU Mutual.
Thank you for that, Councillor Chandler. Any other questions? Any other debate? Councillor Pritchett.
Just if you could confirm my understanding that a separate application will be required if if somebody wants to run a business like taking children pony trekking and such like, that there would have to be a separate application for that.
Helen.
Yes, that's correct. So there's a condition 7 proposed, which states the stables hereby permitted shall be used for the personal recreational use by the owners of the site and not as a commercial riding school or any other business or commercial use. So if they wanted to do anything more than use it for their own personal recreational use, they would require planning permission to do so.
Yeah, thank you. But interesting that, but surely they can breed if they want to breed. I mean, if they've got a horse there and they want to have a foal and then sell the foal, I mean, that's a bit restrictive, that too much. But I'd see what I don't want to overcomplicate it.
Trying very hard there, Councillor Pritchett. Anybody else got any comments? Councillor Holmes.
Right, page 21. Now then, I've lost it now. Oh, permission. The applicant has voiced there, well, it's applicant, I suppose, a requirement to gain residential planning permission on the site. Is that okay? I'm just asking a question.
That was included in an objection that was received to the application. So that page is objections received from local residents. So they haven't said as part of this application that's what they intend to do.
Thank you. Anything else? Right, so we now need to vote on whether we need a motion to vote on what we're going to vote on. Councillor Evans?
I propose the recommendation before us that this is approved.
Councillor Evans proposed it. Councillor Smith, you've got your arm up.
Yeah, happy to second.
Thank you. So it's been proposed and seconded. Proposed by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Smith. Can I have a show of hands, everybody who's in favour of that? Councillor Pritchard's hands up. 8. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Right, there are, thank you, 8 people voted in favour, 1 abstention, so the motion is carried. Thank you very much indeed for your time, everybody. The planning meeting is closed at 6:41. So thank you.